Hello fellows, welcome back to the Fallacious Truth. This is a continuation of yesterday. I was only able to get the first part of it out on the video simply because of time constraints and attention purposes. But we're back here. This is the continuation of how you as a man can prepare your finances in a divorce. I'll leave a link to the previous one, so if you come across this first and you haven't listened to the first one, just so you can easily get to the previous one. So go ahead and sit back, and I hope this helps you. And 9 chances out of 10, this emergency is going to be the crisis that affects you for the entirety of your life. And that emergency is a divorce. I mean, quite honestly, I wouldn't get married at all. The stakes are simply too high. Imagine if this were a business contract, and the contract says this: upon the union of these two companies, party A being the woman and party B being you, the man, company A brings all of their respective assets to the table. Company B brings all of their respective assets to the table, and now they are combined. Consider you are out there working hard 60 hours a week, working yourself to the bone to support your wife. She may or may not have a job. You, as a man, don't care. Traditionally, you are of the mindset that you are there to provide. Anyhow, these assets are now combined, and Company B is the company that brings in the revenue. Company A is the company that spends the net profits of said revenue to make the building look nicer, maybe get faster internet speed. Maybe the president of Company A gets a nicer car, and maybe Company B is content with selling their car, its existing transportation, that it had prior to the merger, for the good of the company as the whole, for the good of the corporation, let's say. Only instead now, the transportation of Company B is now considered an asset of both companies of the corporation. The transportation of Company B, as it's been obtained after the merger, for the sake of Company A to prop it up as the primary consumer-based portion of the company merger. As prior to this merger, it was just a small company, 50 employees or so. Well, Company A starts to grow at the expense of Company B, all the while Company B thinks they're growing as a corporation as a whole, as a single unit, not as individual companies. So let's say you do this for some time. Let's say it's about 5 years down the road. Company A is no longer content with its rate of growth anymore. So Company A starts to look at other businesses it can invest in to yield a greater return. And then another year goes by and Company A is now fully invested in a third undisclosed company. We're going to call this Company C. This company completely came out of nowhere and promised Company A bigger and better things. Company C promised Company A a larger portfolio, better stock returns. Company C promised Company A better growth rate. Company C promised Company E that they would grow their said businesses exponentially. Meanwhile, Company B is still out there, slaving away to increase the profit of this now fictional corporation that Company A and Company B have formed, when all of a sudden Company B decides to destroy that contract with Company A. Company B is now looking at the division of assets. Meanwhile, Company A has sacrificed its time as a business to get stronger. Company A has sacrificed its assets, thinking that it's making the corporation stronger. Company A has sacrificed and bled. It has hemorrhaged money everywhere in order to prop up the corporation, as Company B was simply propping itself up until it found a better company to merge with. In essence, Company A has used Company B under the false pretense of a corporation merger. Company B went all in for this merger because Company B knows that later on down the line, the exponential growth, the revenue, and the profit yielded from that merger increased the overall value of the whole. You see here, Company A knows this too. Company A plays along as long as they possibly can to selfishly gain and siphon off whatever revenue they can to solely support themselves, to prop themselves up, to make them greater than they were going into this merger. You see, they were never fully invested in the merger. They participated in the merger to make themselves better, to prop themselves up, until a better opportunity came along. You see, my friends, Company B is now coming to the realization that Company A was simply propping itself up through Company B just to stay afloat. When Company B tells Company A, hey, it's been great. We've accomplished a lot together. Even though you, Company B, is really the only one who's accomplished anything because you've single-handedly kept both of those companies that were separate that have joined together afloat. When you are told that the corporation wants to split, you say, no, wait a minute here. Wait just 1 minute. We are a unit. We are a whole. We are one. We made a contract with each other. We are told that we would prop each other up. If Company B fell on hard times, Company A would support Company B. If Company A fell on hard times, that Company B would support Company A. Only now to come to the realization that Company B was propping up Company A the entire time. And now you, Company A, are seeing the fruits of your labor. You now have to downsize the building that you're in. You started out in a Mercedes-Benz and now you drive a Toyota. You set yourself up for long-term success prior to the merger. And I mean, that's if you're lucky enough. If you are like most companies who deal with this, you end up significantly under what you started out with. And what's worse, those changes that you made to grow, what you thought was a merger, are now considered assets of the corporation. They are no longer Company B's assets, as they would have been prior to the merger. Oh no, they are corporation assets. So that car you downsized to for what you thought was the benefit of the corporation, what you thought was the benefit of the whole, Company A will get half of it. That bigger building you purchased to grow your corporation, Company A now owns half of it. And since you bought that bigger building with assets of the corporation, its lease isn't up yet. You still have 20 years on that lease. You still have 20 years paying for that building. So now you are stuck paying for the lease on a bigger building. And this bigger building now houses Company A and Company C. While you're stuck paying for it, you are Company B. You don't have any part of that building anymore. And you also have to pay the lease for what you downsized to. You are giving up a minimum 50% of everything that Company B worked tirelessly to the bone for, during this mirage of a corporation. And there's nothing you can do about it. And once it's all said and done, you Corporation B, you are off worse than what you started. A lot of the times you, Company B, says forget it, and they close up shop permanently. But who cares? You know, that's just another man gone from this earth, among the scores of the most expendable resource this world has ever known. And that is the human man. You know, maybe in one of the upcoming episodes, I'll make a better and more complete scenario. I'll put a little bit more thought into it and hopefully explain it a little bit better. What I just did here, I totally wasn't expecting to do that. It kind of just came off the top of my head for the most part. Anyhow, folks, if you're in a similar situation to the above, before the merger of Company A and Company B, before Company C comes along, you need to have some kind of a nest. Some kind of a stash, some resources that are hidden away, known to no one but you. You need this hidden away so you don't become just another expendable man. You need this so you don't go out of business completely. You will need finances that you can draw upon. The average divorce in the United States of America costs, and this is just hire and retain someone so you can have someone in your back corner. I mean, you're looking at least a minimum of 10 to 20 grand, depending on what you want them to do and everything that's involved. Now, say you're the average man and you make around, I don't know, $40,000 a year. This is within the United States. Now, I know everyone can't do this, but you need to put some kind of money back. You need to have some kind of stash. You need to have some kind of resources put aside so you can make an attempt to save yourself. You know, until you've been in this situation, until you have faced the consequences, the eventual consequences of most marriages, you can't really appreciate the information that you're listening to here. So, using that $40,000 per year figure, let's say you bring home roughly $3,333 per month, which equals, roughly $40,000 a year. And that $333,000 is before the government steals X number of dollars right off the top. If you can, you need to take 10% of the gross at minimum and put it away. And I know some aren't able to, but if you are able to, each paycheck, you need to take roughly, and I'm rounding this for simplicity's sake, $330 and stash it away. Keep it away from prying eyes in a way so far that no one but you could ever know where it is or would ever find it. This money is there for your emergency. This money is there for you to fall back on if Company B has to leave Company A or vice versa. Breaking the contract of the corporation where Company A would go with Company C. You know, after Company B has already given everything into the corporation to make it work. Now, the difference between this money and other money you may set aside, this money you're not going to invest in anything. The reason why is because you can't afford to lose it. If you absolutely got it in your mind that you must invest somehow with it or diversify it, which is, I think, a better word used to describe it here, take 25% of that $330 per month and purchase the oldest known source of money that we have in society today, and that would be precious metals. Maybe purchase an ounce of 0.999% silver here, something that retains its value, or at least has a better chance of retaining its value both in the short term and the long term. The long term is really what you're looking for here, just so you have a liquid asset in something else. Yes, the price of metal fluctuates and you could gain or you could lose money, but it's only a small percentage of the 10% that you're going to try to put back here, and at least for me, that risk is worth it. The potential reward in a backup asset is far worth it as far as I'm concerned. And regardless of what happens, you always physically own it. You always, as long as you purchase the physical metal, you will own it. You will have it in your physical possession. And like I said before, possession is 9/10 of the law. Having that stash with just a little bit of diversification, it's got the ability to make you or break you. Making sure that you have liquid assets is another thing if you're able to do it. We can get into the very fine details for this in another video if you really want to. But the point is, make sure that you've got a stash to fall back on. Otherwise, you're going to get lobotomized without it. If you're a man who has the ability to plan this over the course of time, you are way ahead of the curve. For the man who has had this sprung on him, I cannot stress this enough. You need to be putting something aside from the beginning if you can. Anything is better than nothing. Now, one thing I haven't brought up in all of this is children, and the reason why is because children add an entirely different element to this mix, and I didn't want to cover it in this particular analogy. Quite honestly, that deserves a whole separate video in and of itself, because for those of you who have kids and are put into this situation, it changes your focus. It, quite honestly, depending on your specific situation, can change your desired outcome entirely. Now, if you cannot afford to put anything aside, and believe me, I know this may be your case, try to do odd jobs here and there. Gather some extra monies by doing that and stash it away someplace. Anything is better than nothing. Find a skill that you excel at and turn it into a money-making opportunity. I know that sounds very cliche, but it's also very true, and it's not too difficult to do if you really think about it. When all this goes down, you're going to need to have some sort of financial backing to get you through and to keep you going. Otherwise, you're just going to get taken to the cleaners if you're not fully prepared and ready. I need to be very careful what I say here because I don't want to suggest anything with questionable legalities, and I know I've really entered the gray area in some of it here. But if you are a man with a lot of assets, all I'll say here is you need to make sure those assets are as small and as valuable as you can possibly make them. Yet, they need to also retain their value so you can liquidate them as fast and as easily as possible. As an example, this can become much easier if you suddenly have an expensive hobby that can also double as a way for you to store wealth in objects that, say, Company A might not pay attention to those said objects. You know, if those two companies were actual companies, Company B would never in a million years sign on to a contract that allowed Company A to do any of that. No company would be that stupid. Each time we get married, we men, we take that exact same risk. To me, this risk is no longer acceptable. It is not worth it until some major law changes take place. Once your cohabitation becomes a legally binding contract, you now have the legal obligation to fund her existence, as well as a legal obligation to allow her to take your assets at the end of a loaded gun to the tune of a minimum of 50% of what you worked for at the end when she breaks this contract. And now you have continued slave payments to her for potentially decades to come. You know, it's no wonder that self-termination is so high among us men, especially after divorce. A man can have nothing left to live for once he has worked himself to the bone for the family that he has wanted and he loves so dearly, for children that he wouldn't hesitate to jump in front of a bullet for. And all of that can be ripped away in a single instant by the breaking of a contract that was doomed from the start. So I ask you, is it worth the risk? Is it worth taking the chance that you lose damn near everything that you once held dear? I mean, I suppose that's a choice you have to make. I mean, I can't make it for you. I can only try to explain to you in terms that are more easily understandable, and quite honestly, stuff that you probably haven't even heard about, the ramifications that men potentially have getting married. You know, there should almost be a course that legally explains to men the ramifications of divorce. Because without channels like this and so many others, you simply would never know until you're stuck in the middle of it. And you would remain oblivious until it's too late. Anyhow, I know I really got off topic here, but then again, it's okay. It's still something that needs to be addressed, and I would actually like to go in greater detail in it in a later video. So let me try to shift back here just for a little bit more. This video started out about how you as a man need to remain financially sound and have some kind of a stash for when divorce gets sprung up on you. Or even better yet, if you have the ability to plan and strategize, man, fellas, everything is on the line here. If you have that ability to plan, try to work a bit so your income changes. You need to change the status quo. I mean, you have to do that, and you need to check your state to see how long you have to remain at something for it to be considered the status quo in a divorce for a judge. You need to set yourself up for success as much as you can, because Lord knows it is nothing but an uphill battle. Even if you aren't married, even if you simply cohabitate, states will still look at that as a contract between two people, and you will still be on the hook making slave payments to her and providing for her after she decides to trade you up for the next new and shiny model. Alright, thank you for sticking around for listening to both segments here. Like I said earlier, I plan on going into much greater detail. I'm going to redo this whole analogy thing and go into great detail, including if you have kids. So look forward to that upcoming in probably say the next couple weeks here, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, because there's still several other topics I want to look at. So I'll leave a link to the first one here in the description, so if you come across this one first, you can check that one out first, because you do need to listen to that prior to this one. So thank you once again for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll have another video for you coming out soon. Thank you much, and take care.